now from Hollywood, California, the horror capital of the world, the Boulet Brothers, creatures of the night.
Welcome, everybody, to a new episode of the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night. As always, we are your ghost hosts, the Queens of Darkness, Morta
and Swanthula.
And we warned you that we were going to be doing a whole episode about Psycho, and that's partially true. We are going to focus on Psycho and the Psycho franchise a lot during the first part of the podcast, but there's other things we want to talk about too, including, quickly, we saw A Quiet Place Day One.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to talk about it a little bit, but not spoil it.
Okay, no spoilers.
Yeah, no spoilers. So what did you think?
Okay, so my experience was this. It was great. It was emotional. Like, the acting was so good. And I felt like, as an extension of the story, bringing us back to that weird world with like the monsters and stuff. What the first one did was kept us in that darkness for so long about what the monster was and what it looked like and how it operated. But in this one, you don't just get like one or two. It is like a swarm throughout New York City. It is scary. We went with a good friend. It was her birthday. We're like, let's go to dinner and a horror movie. It was really fun. She's like, I want to sit next to you because you're really jumpy and it's fun. I was like, okay, so I'm jumping left and right. It was a really fun ride.
It wasn't what I expected necessarily. It focused more on the human story of it, you know, the main characters in it. But I thought it was really good. I think people should definitely go check it out.
Yeah, it was fabulous.
Yeah, so go watch it if you haven't, and maybe we'll talk about it next episode. Once Ian watches it, because we tried to saddle her with watching it, but we also, remember, made her watch 4 Psycho movies. So, and on that note, why don't we bring Ian in? Ian, welcome back to the show.
Yes, mother? Oh, yes, mother? No, mother. No, of course not, mother. Hello, mothers of darkness.
Hi. So, how was your viewing experience?
Honestly, it was incredible. I get it. I am at the altar of Hitchcock. I understand. I get it. I love it. It's so good. And I cannot wait to dig in because there is just so much history to dig into. I mean, you gave us the queer history light on the last episode, but for those at home who are not prepared, get ready because it is queer as hell.
Psycho represents a landmark achievement in terms of queer depictions on screen. So the means of generating shock value first presented in this film was a new visible queerness that was embodied in the character of Norman Bates. And we had not seen anything like that before.
Right.
This is post-Hays Code. So there was a lot of queer subtext in these stories, but they couldn't overtly say it. And Alfred Hitchcock knew that because in the character of Norman Bates, he cast Anthony Perkins because he was rumored to be an out gay man. Mm-hmm. So it was not unintentional.
Yeah. And so kind of effective. Like, when I watch it now with like my more mature eyes, I'm like, Norman Bates is a queer icon. Mm-hmm. He is he's not only the slasher, but he's also like a scream queen. Mm-hmm. The killer cross-dresser trope is like so fully represented. It was kind of exhilarating to watch it as an adult.
Yeah, I agree. And even watching Anthony Perkins' mannerisms, I was blown away. I mean, I'm not trying to be like gay, but I was like, truly limp-wristed and sort of effeminate. And it was cool to see that on screen in such a classic film. I was like, oh my God, I know her. That's me.
Another thing they talked about was the idea that in that time period, if you were kind of like a mama's boy or close to your mom, like a lot of times people would say you're gay, you know? And they leaned into that obviously a lot with the story.
Very clearly, like the quintessential like mama's boy queer.
What's the quote from it where it's a boy's best friend is his mother? Yeah. I was like, okay, queen. So yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna call my mom later.
So I don't want to spend too much time on Psycho 1 because, you know, I think it's been talked about so much a million times in every podcast and every person that watches horror. So we don't have to spend a lot of time about it, but we should set the stage so that because Psycho 1 leads into Psycho 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah. And they keep the sequential storyline, like I mentioned last episode. It's kind of cool because there are other franchises like A Quiet Place where you time jump backward and forward and all that. We didn't really get that until the fourth one.
Yeah. So with Psycho 1, just to remind viewers, we pick up with Marion Crane, who's stealing the money from her boss. Rain ends up making her stop at the hotel. She meets Norman Bates for the first time. He offers her some food, and that's when we enter Mother for the first time. So rewatching it, I mean, you know, obviously what happened, but what did you think of that moment when you heard her like in the house?
It's interesting because I think that watching this movie in a modern context is it's a different experience because you already know the reveal that Norman is Mother. Because if you don't know that and you go in, spoiler alert, Norman is Mother. Oops, sorry everyone. But when you're watching it, it really does feel like, oh, well, okay, well there is this domineering mother character. And when you hear her, I mean, the dialogue, it kind of cracks me with like, you're not going to bring her into this house and her sin and her hunger. And I'm like, oh my God.
Just kill that whore.
Yeah. It's
or do I have to do it?
Yeah. And then, you know, he just comes back and there's just a strangeness to it.
Yeah.
And just I brought you dinner. Sandwich
with a glass of milk, and I'm like, you know, this guy's a little thin to be eating this much cream and carbs. I don't know if I believe that.
Jack, we've been in LA for too long. If that's the lens you're looking at Psycho through.
Well, speaking of, that's one of the things that Hitchcock decided to do differently from the novelization, because in the novel, Norman Bates was heavier and unkept. And he was an alcoholic too. He drank all the time. So they decided to cast someone different so that the audience could either relate to him or think he's cute or somehow be open to him so that they didn't just dislike him right away.
See, Mrs. Hitchcock knew what time it was because even to this day, when we look at reality stars or other, acting in scripted series, it's the pretty people that people are attracted to, like, period,
You don't say.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, going back, like, why change something like if you're basing a movie on a novel?
Right.
Like, why make that decision in 1960 when this movie came out? So, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
No, of course. And even he knew sex sells. A little bit of TNA at the very beginning. That's actually what I was the most shocked by. I was like, oh my God, an unmarried couple in bed in her brassiere?
Yeah, because we're all programmed to believe that people before like 1960 just didn't have sex. It was it was missionary only when you were married and saved until marriage and all that. But they're having fun.
Well, that's still how I am. I'm I'm a missionary girl.
When you see pre-Hays Code movies, though, and they're sort of like raunchy, and you're like, oh, wow, okay. It wasn't like everyone was a nicey cutie purist before that.
Yeah.
Well, it was almost like they knew the rules, and so they tried to bend them as hard as they could without breaking them. But it feels like Psycho just says, we're going to break all the rules. Well, the Hays Code had ended, but they was like, let's just do it.
There was a movie that we saw a clip of recently, and it showed like Greenwich Village in like the 20s, I think. And it was a video, and it was from a movie they had made. And there was two guys who were basically drag queens performing in a cafe while people were cheering and around.
Really?
Yeah, and they were very like sassy and gay and a fun.
They were singing a song about like sailors coming into the city and like what a ball, like that kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, I love this.
That's so
and
cool.
that reminded me that was before they were like, you can't say gay, or you can't act gay. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see that they're still pushing queer subtext in these movies after this code happened, but you have to hide it all. Okay, so then obviously we have our first death, right? The most famous kill scene probably ever, I would say.
I want us to stop on that for 1 minute because post Psycho and post Quiet Place day one, when Drac and I were driving home, we started talking about iconic death scenes from the horror world.
Yeah.
And because our mind is on Psycho, I was like, maybe I'm behind everybody else, but for me, I came to the conclusion last night that I'm like, Norman Bates killing Janet Leigh's character in Psycho is probably the most iconic kill scene in any horror movie in history.
Point blank, period. You're so right.
Yeah.
And it holds up. It's good. There's this one shot where it's just her like stomach, and you can see the knife tip just barely touching her stomach. And even watching it, I was like, oh, whoa, okay. Like it's good.
Yeah, I think they said he shot that for 7 hours. They shot for 7 hours for a 3-minute clip.
Oh, honey.
I know.
It was worth it.
Yeah.
It was worth it.
I think it's 50 different angles. that
Wow.
they put that
Oh
together
my
from.
God.
Well, the one that I love the most is like her death mask, right? It's when
Oh,
she's
which
like
is-
inverted and like face on the bathroom floor. Like
Yeah.
it's so unnerving.
Yeah.
So
Just like Disasterina.
That's all I could think about. I was like, we did Hitchcock correct.
We did.
So Marion is killed, as we all know. Norman finds her, freaks out, cleans her up, puts her in the car, sinks the car in the swamp, which I still think is very creepy.
So good. And I didn't catch this reference. I mean, I've seen Ty West's X like 3 or 4 times, and it wasn't until this rewatch I was like, oh, right. That's a Psycho reference. And there's so many Psycho references. It's, Psycho and Texas Chainsaw, but I was like, oh, that. And I really did think, I was like, that car ain't gonna sink. There is no way, honey. You
Totally.
goofed.
And now and there's like a whole it might as well be a parking lot because Norman's out there sinking cars every movie.
The cops come and drain it too. I'm like, would you guys just drain the swamp?
I
Like,
know.
get smart here,
They're like, no, taxpayer dollars. We're out here. It's all good.
So now that Marion is dead, we enter her sister Lila and her lover as well, who've come together to try to solve the crime and figure out what happened to their sister and all that. And they subdue Norman in the end, and then we see Norman in a police station with the psychiatrist. That basically like, you didn't know what this movie's about? I'm going to tell you exactly what it is.
I was gagged. I was so gagged. I was like, oh, this is how we're going to do exposition. But I really did actually love that they're like, oh, so he's a transvestite. And he's like, no. And there's this whole discussion about what is a transvestite. And I was like, oh my God. I mean,
They were like, it's they, them, honey.
Exactly. I was like, Brad, Janet Leigh. Yeah, but I was shocked. I mean, almost as shocked as when you see Norman as mother for the only time. I was like, this is drag, honey. This is drag.
It's high drag. It's Dragula. It's the seed of Dragula from 1960.
Dude, like, tell me that's not like a Dragula club party. Like,
100%.
So
Yeah.
good.
Why didn't we ever do that? I can't believe we didn't make people put on the wig and the
Oh
neck
my
and
God,
reenact it.
dude! We could have staged classic kill scenes during the party. That is
my
good.
God.
You know what? When we bring Dragula to the club back, that's what we're gonna do.
Season 7. So just to catch everybody up, at the police station, a psychiatrist explains that Norman killed his mother and her lover 10 years earlier out of jealousy. And unable to bear the guilt, he mummified his mother's corpse and began treating it as if she were still alive. He recreated his mother as an alternate personality, as jealous and possessive towards Norman as he felt about his mother. Whenever Norman is attracted to a woman, mother takes over. See, that's the part that what did you guys think about that? That to me is not obvious. Do you think it is?
Oh yeah, when the women come around, that's when mom starts like yapping out.
No, I know, but did you feel like he was attracted to her, or was he just like
To the mom?
No, to the
other
to
women.
like Marion.
I
Yeah.
think there was a little sexual energy like through many of the women that we see in the earlier Psycho movies, and definitely to Marion too. But I feel like this is almost like a reflection of like self-repression when you're closeted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it is there, but it gets a little muddled because the other really big death is Arbogast, who, I mean, who knows? I mean, hey, what's under your skirt? Maybe he was also attracted to Arbogast, and so that's why he became mother. But I think they take that and they run with it in the later Psycho movies.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, when I watched it, I always assumed he was queer. And that he was, obviously he's dressing up like his mom and stuff. I don't know if he kind of like went in love with Marion, or he wanted to be her, or what, something
Or that it was like
weird
repressing his like sexual desire and killing her.
Like something was happening there, but I didn't think that he was attracted to her. And the reason I think that's important to point out is because we all feel this character is very queer, and they take it in a weird direction in one of the later episodes.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that when we get there, I guess. One of the other things that I thought was very queer-coded was when he was talking to Marion. Remember in the beginning, and he was talking about how people have a private trap that they want to escape. Like,
yeah.
how obvious is that?
Yeah.
It's so on the nose. I was like, this isn't even subtext. Like, this is just like...
These are overtones.
Yeah, totally.
anyways, if you haven't seen Psycho 1, you have to see it. And probably you need to watch it in the next 10 minutes because we're about to talk about Psycho 2 when we come back.
If you haven't seen Psycho 1 also, shame on you.
All right, we'll be right back.
Welcome back to Creatures of the Night, my dirty little darlings. It's time we jump right into Psycho 2.
So this movie is set 22 years after the first film. And in this one, Norman is released from the asylum and he returns to the motel to live there and reopen it. What did you think of the first bit of this? Because that's a huge span of time since the first one. How did you feel about seeing like the motel again and him aged and all that?
I think it's cool. Like the coolest thing to me is that it is diegetically 22 years. Like it's been 22 years since the first film, and so then they place this one directly 22 years after. And it's such a small detail. They don't have to do that, but to me, I'm like, I love it.
It's kind of a believable amount of time for someone to spend in like a psychiatric facility.
Yeah.
It's not like they fudged it and just said, 3 years later or something.
The only part that I was a little confused by is when he gets dropped off and the psychiatrist or whoever's dropping him is like, are you sure you want to stay here? It could trigger your, I don't know, like, I mean, no shit. Like, girl,
Where
like,
you're killing
what?
people. Yeah.
But where would you go? I mean, otherwise they could just dump you out in Skid Row in downtown LA.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I mean, you know what? Actually, and maybe it's all for the best because hey, there's a diner you can go work at. There's a gal who you can hang out with. Kinda like what's not to love?
Yeah, it was interesting, I think, because I would have assumed, if that happened to you, they would take your property and sell it. And I don't know, I thought they, but they didn't. So I love that they didn't, obviously, because the house and the hotel is so iconic. All right, so then Norman meets Mary and they start to get close, but notes start being left by Mother and phone calls are happening. And what did you all think of that? Did you think it was him? Did you think it was someone else? Like, what were you all thinking?
I thought it was a little corny. Like I knew, this was a trope that we'd seen from the first one. And I'm like, okay, Mother's leaving notes on the little spinny thing where you put the orders in at the diner. I'm like, girl, no.
Yes!
But also, yes.
So 80s, so ridiculous.
Yeah, really ridiculous. But, it is what it is. What did you think?
For me, this is honestly maybe my favorite in the franchise. Like I think Psycho 2, it takes all the good stuff of Psycho and then it also amps up the camp and a little bit of the stupid. And I love an unreliable narrator. So the second where it's phone calls and notes, I was like, oh, is she gonna lose it?
I do want to say this. I agree with you. I think Psycho 2 is an excellent installment in the Psycho franchise.
Really
it's
good.
really good. Yeah.
It's my favorite of the sequels, too. I agree with you. Of the sequels, not over the first one.
Right. I think we all agree.
It's funny because when people talk about Psycho, they primarily and just only really talk about the original Psycho.
Yeah.
And of course, I mean, there's so many other spin-offs besides like the core four that we're talking about that are not great, but Psycho 2 really stands up. It's good.
I agree. And that's what we're here to do at Creatures of the Night. We're here to educate. So we want to push not just the original, but we want to push all of the installments of the franchise so you know in its fullness what the story is about.
Right.
Well, I'm Ian DeVogler of Destruction, and I agree. And I love my leg.
My favorite part of this was that they brought back the sister, Lyra,
Yeah.
the actress, and the character, and that Mary is her kid, and it makes so much sense because I thought it was, you would see that still,
Yes, and it goes into, I think, part of the reason why this is my favorite is because it really takes the plot and says, let's actually add a bunch of different layers because it's, okay, Norman gets out of the mental hospital and then is Mother back? What's happening? And then these murders are happening, but then there's the reveal, and then there's the reveal, and the reveal, and the reveal. I was like, oh, so there's a lot happening.
Backing up my initial reaction to the note on the diner, like, what do you call that thing? That
the
spinny
spinner,
wheel that
yeah.
Mel spins when it's time to make the dinner. So when I saw it there, I was like, oh my God, I don't know. This is like, it's giving corny. But then when it was like, wait, Is she back? Is it the other woman making these calls? Are they trying to pry on his like kind of like mental instability and kind of coax him into a relapse? And it got interesting.
Well, what did you all think when now someone dressed as Mother kills Lila, but Norman is at the swamp, so it couldn't be him? What did you think of that?
That's where I started to say, I'm just going to turn my brain off. Like, I've got to let this happen, because if I think too hard, like, Mother's going to start calling me. Like, I don't know.
Oh my God. I can't relate to you more than I do in this moment, because I just let it go. I'm like, I'm not going to overthink
You all
this.
didn't try to think, like, you weren't thinking, like, who is this?
Not really. Were you?
Yes.
So what did you think?
Well, I wasn't sure, but it's interesting because I did think of the granny at the diner, because I'm like, why did they make such a thing about her?
Yeah.
You know? He was like, oh, well, it's Norman. I'm like, no, they just showed him at the swamp. There's no way he could have got back in time. So I wasn't sure who it was, but I was like, okay, this is about to get really weird.
Yeah, well, I have a question for you both, because I was diving into the swamp of Psycho 2, and I was reading that there's not a lot, but there are people who are upset with the fact that Lila is sort of the hero of Psycho, and then she kind of becomes, I guess, our anti-hero villain kind of character. Like, what do you think about her turn?
I didn't love it. Yeah, I would have expected to see her come back and be heroic again in some sort of like, Jamie Lee Curtis, Halloween 3, Halloween 4. No,
Right.
She wasn't in that either. Halloween H2O, kind of
yeah.
vibe. So I don't know. I didn't love that she became the villain, but I do think after watching so many crime documentaries and seeing the families like 20, 30 years later, that kind of stuff does happen. Not that they dress up and kill people, but that some of the victims' families will still show up 20, 30 years later and be like, no, don't let that person out. They won't let it go. So it's kind of realistic, that part of it.
I agree.
Yeah, I think it's cool, honestly, that not only is this a queer slasher, but we also sort of get it's strange, because Norman is the villain, but he's also sympathetic in a way where it's like, later we get like Freddy Krueger, for example. It's like Freddy is the star of Nightmare on Elm Street. Like, we don't go there like because you want to see him lose. You go because you want to see him win. And it's almost the same here. It's like Norman becomes very sympathetic. You're kind of like rooting for him at the Pride Parade, I guess.
Yeah, well, he becomes the victim, right? He becomes the victim of abuse at that point, because they're killing people in his name. He's not killing them at that point. But then he gets into this conflict with Mary, where she puts on Mother's costume.
And the reason that she does that is because she's trying to break through his actual relapse and psychosis. Like, the only way he's answering the phone and talking to Mother when there's like nobody there, and she knows it because she's like on the other line, which was so camp. I mean, when she's like ran upstairs and got into drag. She like Wonder Woman spinned at the top of the stairs and came out like Norman's mom.
You couldn't get over that when we were watching. You were like, oh, come on. She's right there.
Seriously.
I love it. I love too when they're having basically like a repeat of like the Psycho dinner scene, and she like puts the knife in his hand. She's like, come on, get crazy. I'm like, okay, got it.
I thought it was really creepy too when she was stabbing him, when he was pursuing her down the basement and all. And I was like, I didn't know where it was going to go. I was like, oh my God, is she going to kill him? Like, because he was like bleeding a lot and he was falling around.
No, that was really effective.
Yeah.
I actually really bought that entire staged ending where she, dressed as a mom, like starts attacking Norman because Norman won't like let up on the approach on her. And then the police bust in and see her knife,
I was gagged,
raised, ready to kill, and they just shoot her dead. And it's like it gets Norman off the hook. And I'm like, oftentimes like movies that wrap things up like in a big nice little bow like that, you're like, I don't know. But this one, I was really buying it.
Yeah.
Well, let's not forget, they kill Mary.
Yes.
The cops assume she did it all.
Yeah.
Norman's, just by himself again, eating dinner, and someone knocks at the door. Enter Emma Spool. The whole... What did you think when that happened? Because the whole story changed at that point.
Granny hag drama, confusion.
Yes!
I was like, how many confusing grannies are here? Is it mom? Is it Spool? Who's the chick at the diner? I'm like, wait a minute.
She stopped it.
Grannies.
Yeah, she stopped it and was like, pause. she was like, there's too many grannies. Who are all these grannies? He's like, the granny's the mom, right? But she's the sister and she's dead. But then there's the granny at the diner. I'm like, come on, it's so easy to follow.
Oh my God.
Drac tried to correct me. He's like, look, let's call the sister a middle-aged granny. And let's call
Middle-aged
the I was like, okay, Granny Light, Granny 2 is quite as old as Granny 1 and Granny 3.
Oh my
What
God.
did you think when you...
Well, when You're Not My Real Granny, You Never Will Be shows up at the end, I was like, wait a damn minute. It's a little... Who is this? Like, literally, like, hey kids, meet your new mom. Like,
Yeah.
Who are you? And then, but it does give us the amazing real ending with the taxidermy.
Yeah.
What did you think of him? Like, he was like, oh, okay. He started to buy it and then he killed her. What did you think of that?
I was shocked. Like, I thought that was such a cool scene. I loved it. Like, it was like
Yeah.
so much anticipation and then like that violent outburst. I'm like, ooh, this is so good.
Because you've been waiting for Norman to sort of let it rip the whole movie. It's
Yeah.
like, it's like that's what we've been leading to, and then cut to. I mean, I kind of like to think that it's like, "Hello, Norman, it's me, your real mother." Like it's like stabbed. You're like, "Oh no!"
And
Granny!
he wasn't manic panic about it at all. It was like, would you like some tea? Why don't you have a seat? I'm now going to pick up this shovel and clock you inside the head and kill you. And it was very
And it was
relaxed.
intense. The,
It
the
was
clobber
intense.
was
Yeah.
quite... I was like, okay.
Like any good mama's boy.
So I don't know. To me, that I didn't totally understand that. I mean, is he like, okay, well, now that I know you're my real mom, I must kill and stuff you too?
I thought that it was more of a like. We close the loop. This whole movie is about trying to get him to become the Norman Bates that he was in the first movie. And it's like, no, actually, I'm reformed. I'm good. Like, I went to charm school. I'm fine. And then the very end happens and he's like, actually, I could use a new Black Christmas mom in the window. And I was like, yes, that's my girl.
Well, I think Psycho 2 is probably the best out of all of the,
The sequels.
sequels, but not better than the first, obviously.
Sure.
And that leads us to Psycho 3.
Yay.
The obvious best in the franchise.
So Psycho 3 is wild.
Psycho 3 is wild. And we're going to start with this because when I see a face, I know it. When I saw that nun's face, I was like, oh my God, it's Christina from Mommy Dearest. And it's Diana Scarwid. It is her.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
There's some kind of cross-cultural queer nexus that happens on Psycho 3 where we have some Mommy Dearest energy and Norman Bates energy.
Yes.
It's amazing.
Wow. I love a nun movie, first of all. And just to open it and be like, suicidal nun, I'm like, oh, so we're going for shock. Like
Yeah.
full on, like, oh, I'm suicidal nun. And then, oops, sorry, accidental nun kill over here. I was like, this is my kind of movie.
I love that the nun gooped him.
Yeah,
He's
totally.
in full drag, ready to kill her. and he
Oh,
opens
yeah.
the door and he's like, whoa.
Whoa, hold on, shapeshifter.
Oh my God.
So then he decides, well, I'm going to, I guess it endeared him to her, right? So he takes care of her. They start to become involved and
Yeah.
she's putting the moves on him.
There's like a
basically.
legitimate romantic thing there, I think.
Yeah.
That was, I think, the part that I started to get a little confusion about. And truly, he's all fucked up. She's all fucked up. I mean, why not just be fucked up together? Like, I get that. But in terms of the overall story to this point, you haven't really seen Norman in that type of relationship. So I was kind of like, oh, this isn't your gal pal. Like, this is your gal pal.
But
now.
remember, when she tried to get him to have sex, it didn't happen at all. And she was like, let's just hold each other. So maybe,
Well, hey, when you spend your life married to God, you get used to going to bed alone.
well, she wanted it. It was him that didn't want to do it.
Me coming to LA, I'm like, I don't want to be a nun anymore. I want to be a psycho granny.
Oh my God.
Mission accomplished.
Yay!
You know what I thought was cool? I want to talk about that goop moment when Norman comes in, like mom comes in, gonna, kill Maureen, the nun. She beat her to the punch and she's like sliced her wrists and she's dying in the tub. That whole sequence of playing with this idea of Norma Bates is actually the Virgin Mary manifesting for this nun.
With the knife as the crucifix.
Yes. I'm like, this is Like something weird is happening here.
Yeah. Well, I love when a movie says, okay, cool. Like we've touched on some sort of nerve and we're just going to like turn the dial to 11. Like that's really blasphemous.
Yeah.
Like that's hardcore as hell. And I love it.
Yeah, surprising for a movie that was made when it was, too. Okay, so then we enter this Tracy character who is like the reporter that's trying to figure everything out. Is she a reporter? I can't remember, right? She's something like that.
I think reporter?
I feel like she's a reporter from LA.
She's nosy.
Yeah, she's very nosy. Let's just put it that way. So she basically confronts Norman after. Well, actually, I'm skipping a part because there was the part where the guy he hired had his mom's corpse. Remember, he took her and put her in the hotel room and was trying to blackmail Norman. Remember that?
Oh my God. Yeah, that was like super weird.
Yeah,
Yes.
and then Norman picked up the guitar and beat him to death with the guitar.
Watch the guitar.
Okay.
Watch the guitar.
So fun that like at this point, this is what, like 80.
Might be 89 even, unless that was when they did 4. I don't remember.
86.
Oh,
It's
86.
1986.
So, by this time, the slasher genre is in full swing. And, we can honestly credit Psycho with being like the proto slasher. And then we have this sequel with Psycho 2. This one goes full ham and is like, you're getting killed. Like, it's like creative kills, like the guitar. And it's just, we dial it to 11 and sometimes it works, sometimes it don't.
Is this the one where we stuffed the girl's body in the ice machine?
That's the one.
Yep, that's with like
Her
all the
death
drunk
was
guys.
scary though in the phone booth. I thought with the broken glass and her stepping on the glass. I
No,
thought that was
it
really
was.
scary.
It was, and I love the like TNA 80s of it all. Like the sexual overtones are like so apparent in this one.
Totally.
So it all culminates with Tracy confronting him in the house, and she starts explaining what she has found out because she's, a reporter, so now she knows everything. So she explains that Spool was not Norman's mother. She was actually his mother's sister who was in love with Norman's father. And when he chose her sister over her, Spool snapped and killed him. She then kidnapped the infant Norman, but was later institutionalized. Norman, in a rage, destroys Spool's corpse, severing mother's control over him. Annie gets arrested, and then as he's getting driven off to jail and he's all happy and he's like, now I'm free of mother, he reveals that he has her hand.
Her disembodied hand.
Yes.
So what did you all think of the ending of this and the re-explanation and the backtracking of the story?
I'm realizing as we talk about it, I'm like, Psycho can kind of do no wrong for me.
You love
like,
it.
I'm like, yes, I'm buying it all. Like, take my money.
Yes.
I'm like, I love this like weird curveball with Mrs. Spool, but it's actually the sister who was smitten by her own sister and her love for someone that she was in love with. So it's like a love triangle kill thing, and it kind of brings us back to the original story and how Norman's father died. And I think it was kind of cool.
I think for me, I'm on the train, but I don't know that we're in the same train car of like accepting that Psycho can do no wrong. Because for me, and maybe because I watched them like so close together, I was like, well, wait a damn minute. Like we just had Spool Granny, and now Spool Granny, not Granny, she's Spool Aunt. So I was like, okay, well, did we even really need that? But I will say, like, the real callback to the sort of the big, almost like exposition reveal of like, and then this is why you're all this way, and here's actually the reality. And then like really the end where he's like caressing the hand, it's so like, I'm not even going to kill that fly on my hand. This little old lady wouldn't kill a fly. I'm like, total Psycho train, like, cool, I'm into it. It's ridiculous.
Actually, now that you mention that, I wonder if that's a throwback to the first one, right?
I mean, I like to think that it is, because this one was also directed by Anthony Perkins, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and because, at the end of the first one, we were just talking about how the psychiatrist explains everything.
Yeah.
She's doing the same kind of thing here, so it's kind of similar.
and we get that same, like, just, it's just Anthony Perkins' face, like, in the car, and it's just, I mean, the hand is full-blown ridiculous. I'm like, someone needed to confiscate that,
That
honey.
was full on like Critters 2, 80s weirdness.
I live. I thought it was so good. And when I say Psycho can do no wrong, I mean it. Only for Psycho 1, 2, and 3. Because when we get to Psycho 4, she did it all wrong.
I was like,
oh.
As the Connie of the podcast, I can't wait for Psycho 4.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into Psycho 4, the beginning. So a couple of things I want to throw out there before we dig into it. The writer was actually Joseph Stefano, who wrote the screenplay for the original Psycho.
Which was shocking
blew
to
my
find.
mind.
It really blew my mind,
That is
too.
blowing my mind right now.
It was a made-for-TV film aired as part of a retrospective on Showtime, I believe. So it was a made-for-TV film in the late 80s, like 89, 90, something like that, I think.
Yeah, I think it was 1990.
Now, it's later been revealed, and this will explain a lot, that the writer said he chose to ignore Psycho 2 and 3. So this is supposed to be a direct sequel to Psycho 1, which makes sense because he's getting released again from the sanitarium, and you're like, we already did this.
Right? They're like, now you shouldn't be doing it. We just saw what happened with Spool Mom.
He kind of screwed up because they referenced the murders from 2 and 3 in 4. Like they some of the characters references, I'm like, well, are you ignoring it or you're not? Maybe they were just sloppy. I don't know. So let's get into this movie. So what did you guys think? Because this took a couple of different diversions.
I mean, overall, I thought it was terrible. I didn't like it. And I really, the part that turned me off the most was how deep we went into Norman's relationship with his mom when he was younger, which we see a ton of that. And I liked it. I preferred it when there was ambiguity about his sexual orientation. There was ambiguity about having the overbearing mother as an archetype in a young queer person's life. And you didn't have to spell it out. And this one was like so overly telegraphed with the sexuality to the point where I felt like it was uncomfortable. Like you don't need a mom commenting how hung her son is. It's like weird.
Yeah, I think that is an element of the film that I can see if they were trying to go for a, like, we're going to push the edge of the envelope and make the audience uncomfortable. And if that's what they were trying to do, I mean, it definitely made me uncomfortable. Like, the scene with, like, what is it? Like, it's like the bucket, and then there's like the incest, and I was like, I don't know that I needed all of this. Like, I was already on Norman's side. Like, this isn't, like, endearing me toward him more. It's just actually making me, like, sad. Like, I wanted psycho drag stab, and I'm getting like depression.
Yeah, and not only that, told over the phone to the radio radio host. Which
That's like the weirdest part to me.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I mean, at first I was like, okay, they're doing this to save money because this is a made-for-TV movie. But then they went to the house anyways and shot a bunch of stuff. So I'm like, it's not that.
I thought it
Full-blown
was
forensic files.
You know, it was someone got a great idea. Let's make this let's use this as a narrative vehicle, right? Like this collar and Norman kind of like spilling the tea right from the horse's mouth. We get what was happening when he was a child. Because I guess who else would know?
Yeah.
But, you know, maybe in theory, on paper, it looked great, but I'm not sure if it was successful in the film.
I did not enjoy the sequel because I felt like you said, it went too into it. Like, I don't need to know what the body of Frankenstein's life was before he became the monster. I don't need to know. It does take away, I think, a little bit from him being scary or the whole thing.
Yeah.
I also thought the forced feminization and these things sort of pushed a negative queer trope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's because, like, at the very beginning of our conversation, we're talking about when the psychiatrist in the original Psycho is like, oh, well, no, every time he's attracted to a woman, this mother comes out. And you can make the argument of like, oh, okay, well, this is, you know, the queer slasher. This is the gay drag trans killer. And that's where that trope comes from. But up until this point, it's fun. I'm like, I love this. This is awesome. Like, yes, like it's honestly, I look at it and I'm like, absolutely, like empowering. And then we get here and I'm like, okay, well, not every queer person has this sort of horrible, I mean, like ostensibly just horrific childhood, like of abuse and all these things. And it muddies I think the agency of Norman. It's sort of like and not that he has to be fun, but I'm like, Norman's not fun anymore. It's like, again, I'm like, oh no, Norman.
I didn't like the actress who they cast to play the mom either. I didn't like what she did because I felt like she was too young and pretty. And, you know, when you see Norman's mom's body, you know, in the first Psycho, she's had to only be dead a couple of years, right? But she looks like a total
old
granny. And when he does her voice, it's a granny's voice.
Yeah.
Well, this lady didn't have a granny's voice. So it's like, I don't know. I thought it was a weird disconnect. she never got old, and I don't know, that was strange to me. I thought maybe they were gonna have her get sick or decrepit or something happened to her to make her sound like, but they never did.
Well, it makes me wonder, given the social context of sort of what was happening with Anthony Perkins in the real world, kind of around that time. It's like, were there writing decisions made to distance himself from this character or to create a different type of narrative? So it's like, oh, wait a minute. This isn't, Anthony Perkins isn't Norman Bates. Like, Norman Bates is a deviant, and Norman Bates is evil and all these things. And I'm like, wait a minute, like, this is the character that we spent 3 movies sort of falling in love with.
Right. And
Yeah.
I think them ignoring the second and third one is part of that. And I think that was a misstep, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I also think maybe it had something, and I could be wrong. I'd love, Mick Garris was the director of Psycho 4, who we know, and I'd love to ask him about working with Anthony Perkins, because he's got to have some crazy stories. He said he was very difficult to work with.
Like,
Really?
I think the most difficult actor I've ever worked with was
Really?
the quote. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Interesting.
he said he grilled him on all these questions like, well, why do you think this is a good idea for the story? Do you think this pushes the narrative correctly? Are you just doing this for shock value, or do you think it adds to Norman's background like he really cared? And then I guess that was kind of laborious, but at the end, Anthony Perkins was very happy with the final product, which kind of gags me a little bit.
Anthony Perkins and another writer have put forth a script for Psycho 4 that was rejected. So the studio rejected their idea because Psycho 3 did so poorly at the box office that they're like, no, we're not going to let you guys do another one. So they brought in Mick Garris, and they're like, let's bring back the original writer. Hopefully with these two, we can revitalize the franchise. But I think it just took a weird sideways turn.
You know what? I agree. And something else strange that I kind of unearthed when I was like researching Psycho 4, because I know that Anthony Perkins died of AIDS, and I wanted to know when that happened. And Psycho 4 comes out in 1990, and Anthony Perkins dies in 1992. So 2 years after this film. And when you see him, I mean, he doesn't look sick.
But he was sick.
No,
he was getting
very
treatment
sick
while he was on the set.
Yeah. And this is the part that I was like so gagged, and like talk about just kind of violating any person, that he had a blood test, and the National Enquirer somehow knew that happened and illegally tested his blood for HIV, and it came back positive, and they outed him.
That is insane.
Yeah.
That is so
unbelievable.
Can you believe that was okay, that people would do stuff like that back then?
I mean, unfortunately, I can, because we have examples, but at the same time, it's so disgusting and monstrous.
Yeah.
But it makes me think about the time period this movie comes out, because it's like, we have the 80s. It's fun. Slashers are great. And then this is so early in the 90s that it's kind of hard to say, oh, well, this is a part of like 90s grunge and the sort of the horror that comes out of that era. But I do wonder, it's like, the AIDS crisis is happening. There's just a lot of darkness kind of in media. So is this movie also a reflection of the time? It doesn't make it any better.
I think George Bush was still the president, because Clinton came in, I think, in 91. So there was an oppressive vibe,
an anger,
considering all of these factors.
Did you think, because I thought for a minute, did they try to make Norman Bates' character heterosexual in this one, because that stuff was out there in the press at the time about him being gay and having AIDS and all that? What do you all think of that?
I don't know.
Because they made him be married to a woman, and and
I think a lot of gay men do that, especially from an older generation. We hear those stories, and as younger people get born in a world where acceptance is much more there, we look back at older generations and are like, oh my God, what they had to endure, how they had to live like a false life. I mean, I feel like that story's been told like a million times. One of the things that I actually did like about Psycho 4 was this idea that, okay, Norman kind of pushed away his queerness and his sexuality, got married, integrated back into society, but absolutely would not have a child. And I think it harkens back to his relationship with his mother and how he didn't want any kind of like weird genes being passed down. He didn't want to be a parent. And I thought that was the reason that they made him married and like a couple, so that you could have that mother, daughter, son kind of relationship kind of mirrored.
I could see that. I mean, I think that you're right, and I'm going to agree with you. I think that that's probably the best element of it, and it's sort of one of the most realistic of that that generational fear of, you know, not to steal Jamie Lee Curtis's like generational trauma, but like, you know, is that trauma going to get passed down, you know, to the next generation of people?
Yeah. And I think, you know, he burns the house down, and so it sort of does put it into the whole thing. It's interesting that he died so shortly after the film, because there was an idea for another one out there, but obviously he didn't live to make it. And I don't think at the time you could have done another Psycho without him.
So wait a minute. Could it be that Norman Bates has a child, right? Like she was pregnant, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's kind of interesting.
I mean, you don't know, but that's what you're left with, is that, yes. I mean, you could always pick up and do, you know, another Psycho 5 and have it be the kid. It would be very easy. And the house wasn't totally burnt down at the end. It was burnt up, but it, you know.
And you can still get a great grilled cheese at that diner, honey.
They would still charge you at least
$1.25.
$1.4 million for that house in LA.
Oh, absolutely.
Right off the highway?
They'd be like, there's no running water, there's no HVAC, the electricity doesn't work.
There have been
1.4.
hella dead grannies in this house, honey. Sign me up. 1.4, a steal.
Apparently, houses that are rumored to be haunted or people have been killed in now sell well. It's an attraction for some people.
That's such a funny flip.
Yeah, to me, that's one thing I've never cared about, is when people are like, someone died here. I'm like, there's a good chance that someone died everywhere that you've been in your life.
You're like, so you're telling me it has original hardwood floors?
I know.
Awesome.
Well, because when we go to Europe on tours, think of how old those places. How many people died in those places? I'm like, if this isn't haunted, nothing in America's haunted. Yeah. So, anyways, back to this. So the ending of this is very hokey to me. Like, he just, he brings his pregnant wife to the house and he's gonna kill her, and her love power takes over and talks him out of it, so he burns the house down instead. I hated it.
Same.
Universally didn't like it, right?
Hated it.
Yeah, not my favorite. And it's unfortunate too, because it's like Psycho 1, slam dunk. Psycho 2, slam dunk. Psycho 3, a swan slam dunk. And then Psycho 4 is not great.
Yeah, it's not. It's a really disappointing end to such an iconic series of films.
The films go from best to worst. They really do in the order of their filming.
I wonder sometimes why they haven't done anything else with it. Now, they did do that remake, but it did very poorly.
It not good.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
I have not seen it.
Don't.
Really?
It's so bad.
Really?
The cool thing about it is a shot-for-shot remake of the original. And even the way that the actors, their physicality and the way that it's shot, like it's literally like they just modernized the film. And so that's very cool. But the performances in it are so lackluster and just doesn't translate. Like, for what it's worth, and I think we've all said this in some ways, like the original Psycho is awesome. Like, Janet Leigh is so good. Anthony Perkins is awesome. The filming is great. And it just is like, why do this?
Yeah, there's no reason to redo it, because we all know now that Norman Bates is Mother. So it's kind of like, this movie's good. Just leave it where it is.
She is Mother and she slays.
Exactly.
I've been waiting this whole episode for that.
So, a couple of things now that we've seen them all that I think we should talk about. The first thing is, what do you think of the idea of the cross-dressing drag as the killer? Because that's a trope that comes up a lot after Psycho.
I mean, it is very relevant right now today, like socially and culturally. It's crazy because drag queens are evil and they are killers and they are deranged.
Yeah, look at Dragula. There's those two crazy bitches kill their own contestants.
I know. I mean, they're crazy, but they are fabulous.
Their wigs are better than Mother's, I'll say that.
That is true, but also Lila's wig, mama, was laid.
So what do you guys think? Do you think it's a negative portrayal of queerness in these Psycho films?
I think after we talked all of these movies through, I think 1 through 3 hit a nerve that was kind of fun. It almost took you on a ride that you were able to kind of like get into, even though the subject matter was kind of grisly and there's murder. I think Psycho 4 kind of turns to the left a little bit and puts that queerness in a much more like negative, deviant light, incestuous, and like just overplayed. At base, I don't necessarily think that portraying a man who's dressed as a woman as some kind of like deranged psycho killer is good for anyone who's queer.
Well, I don't know.
I have a similar view, but I think for me, when it comes to cross-dressing or drag as the killer, or even by extension, sort of the gay villain, I think that there can be a lot of strength in it, you know, which I think, Swan, you touched on with like the first three. And for me, and I think for a lot of people, and I think for the three of us, like growing up and seeing fabulous gay villains was that, like, that's my representation. I'm like,
Exactly.
this, like, I'm like, this is power.
Yeah.
Like, I look at these characters, and even, you know, it's like my generation is very much like the Disney generation. So it's like looking at Hades and Jafar and Ursula. I'm like, yes, like these are queer villains, and I love them. That being said, like you said, Swan, like when it goes to a dark place, it's like no one's laughing anymore. And I'm looking at Psycho 4 being like, this is why people are scared. Like up until this point, people are getting Norman Bates mother tattoos. No one's getting a tattoo of Psycho 4.
Right.
Like
no, I agree with that.
Yeah. And also, like, Dress to Kill is so that movie is
Psycho walks or Dressed to Kill could rhyme.
hell yeah. And wear those sunglasses.
I just was watching it and I'm like, God, I really like that house. And I was like,
Drac was
I
on
was
about
like,
every scene. He's like,
God.
oh God, the house.
I was like, I'd really love that little hotel. That could be cute.
You're like, you could do this.
I was like, wait a minute.
Okay, I was a little goop though in the first one when I'm like, this hotel is kind of like a bungalow. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, this is like kind of chic.
Now I want us to go do the studio tour and see the Psycho house and the hotel on the lot.
I when I was researching Psycho, I read that when they moved the house to the back lot or to the lot, it was just two sides. Like it was just like the front, and then, you know, it's like he's always here from the corner.
Yeah.
And then when they started doing the tours, they realized that they needed to build another side because they would just be like, oop, these are flats.
Yeah.
So they built a third side, and then they moved it to another location on the lot, which is why they ended up finishing it. So the house has been like basically built in stages over the course of like 40 years or whatever.
So is the interior there or it's not?
I don't think that that's not the interior. They don't do it in there. It's just the exterior.
Interesting.
It's funny because I called it when we were watching them. It's very obvious, but if you're not looking for it, you might not pick up on it. I believe that they only show the house from one angle.
Yeah, and it's that
over.
classic
It's exactly
angle.
the same
You never
angle.
see the back
That's
of it, the
two
sides.
Yeah.
Although
the
somehow
facade.
they showed him going into the cellar in
Yeah.
Psycho 4 without showing the back of the house though. But you did see the cellar open and someone go down there.
Just a total sidebar. You know what scene I really love from the first Psycho? It's when Lila is going up to the house, and it's that like reverse shot where it's like she's looking at the house and then the house is like looking at her back and forth. I was like, this is scary, Diva.
It's true. And when you were speaking about Universal, I forgot, when we go to the horror nights, the first time we went, it was like The Walking Dead, right? So were you with us?
That was the right before I came here.
Oh, so you get out, they shove you off the tram, and then people start running at you. I was like, what is happening? So
cool.
we're running past these things, and it's like a hotel, and all these people are coming out the doors. I did not connect it with the Psycho.
Neither did I.
Because it was so much happening, and they made it look more 80s, and I just didn't recognize it. But then I was like, oh, that's
It's the Bates
hotel.
Motel.
Yeah.
Literally the Bates Motel.
Now, last year they had something where there was an actor dressed like Norman Bates, and you could take a
cute.
picture with him in front of the Psycho house. There was a big line. It was cool.
Oh, did they renovate from the time that we went, and it was the the Jordan Peele experience that made zero sense?
Well, that's still there.
Yeah.
It was still there last year.
And nobody knows why.
Yeah.
It is confusion.
I'm like, unless a UFO is going to come down, I
Like-
don't understand why we're doing this.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive on Psycho 1, Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and Psycho 4.
The beginning.
We are going to take a quick break, and we will be right back. All right, my darlings, we are back, and it's time we reach into our heavy bag of listener mail and answer all of your burning questions. Ian, will you do the honors?
Ian, please don't put your sack on the table.
Sorry, this time I'm spinning the little diner spinner and looks like Mother left some listener questions. Clink. Aldo from Phoenix writes, hello, Boulet Brothers and Ian. My question to you all is, now that the show has a bigger audience, would y'all consider doing a Season 1, Season 2 tour with the top 3 or top 4 monsters of those seasons? I know tours take a while to get set up, so if that's a possibility, it would be amazing to quote-unquote reintroduce the monsters.
You know, I think one tour a year is enough, and I don't know that I would go back and do that. What I'd rather do is find a way to reintroduce those characters in future seasons of the show and then take them on tour.
Yep.
I think that's the best way to do it.
I agree.
Birdie asks, the Oregon Vortex sounds a lot like the haunted shack at Knott's Berry Farm. Do you think that it was/is the same or just the same concept?
So here's the deal with the Haunted Shack. The Haunted Shack was the first haunted attraction at Not Scary Farms, and it was very much the same thing as the Oregon Vortex. So they guided you through, there was a huge line, and a guide would have to take you, stand you in certain places, just like they did up there. So yes, it is the same thing.
So wait, was there a mudslide at Knott's that made the house crooked, just like it did in Oregon?
But wait, also, as one person so kindly pointed out, is it also an optical illusion?
Right. But I will tell you something interesting about the Haunted Shack. The Haunted Shack was actually a haunted shack that they found in a gold...
Wait, the haunted shack was actually a haunted shack?
But I mean, they didn't build it. It was literally a house that was rumored to be haunted in this old ghost town. They
interesting.
brought all these old cars and trucks and brought the whole thing to Buena Park and put it in Not Scary Farm. So the actual shack was supposed to be a real haunted place. Now, I don't know whatever happened to the real building because eventually they got rid of the haunted shack, but they did bring it back for the 2020, like the anniversary.
The 50th year?
Yeah.
She said, come on, Kitchen Witch, with all the dates and times. Damn. The 2020.
I am obsessed with Knott's history. I am. I have like a whole history of Knott's, like a book.
So cool.
And then I have there's a bunch of YouTube videos too if people want to look more into it, but it's really something weird happening.
Something
there.
weird is happening there, and it is our favorite.
Yeah. Tanya asks, my husband and I love all things Boulet and have started watching movies on your guest curator list on Shudder. We recently watched Black Christmas in 1974 and enjoyed it, but felt the ending was unresolved because you never really learn anything about the killer or their motivation. We were wondering how you feel about the ending and any other thoughts on the film.
It's a great horror movie. I love Black Christmas. It's like up there for me on my top. It didn't really bother me. Usually it would bother me. I'd want some kind of clue, but it left it being more scary. Like if that happened to you and it was you would never know who was behind it, you know? So I didn't mind it.
If I recall, and I haven't seen it for a couple of years now, the phone rings at the very end. And to me, that is so satisfying. Like I actually love the ending.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and y'all turned me on to Black Christmas. Black Christmas is actually one of my favorites. Like it's so good. And like you're saying, it's also like The Strangers. Like it's like, why are you doing this? Well, because you were home. Why is the killer doing this? Well, because they're there. That it's
It really captures that vulnerability of the time period, even the retro phones and no cell, just that
blizzard
isolation.
Well, that's what I wanted to mention is thinking back to when I was younger, but in that time period where there were no cell phones and you had those rotary phones, if that phone rang after 8, it was scary.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's like
Either
something
someone
bad.
died,
Yep.
it would be something, because nobody would call your house
Family
that
member
late at
calling
night.
something happened.
Yeah. And so it added to the terror of it, I felt like.
Batty Page writes, my burning question was, are you planning to release your own line of cosmetics or possibly collaborate with another line like Black Moon Cosmetics?
So we actually have our own makeup company already. And we've been working on makeup for a long time, but it's not ready to be released, and we sort of put it on the back burner. But we would like to put out some makeup products because there's no one that really caters to people with a darker aesthetic. And when they do, it's not always done well. So a lot of times you'll see lipsticks that, you know, you can see through them, or they don't last all day, or they tend to bleed and things like that. So we wanted to make our own lipstick that was exactly what we wanted it to be and served our purposes for filming. So we've been working on it, but we're not ready to release it yet.
Yeah, there's a lot of regular companies that just try their products out on regular bitches, but when you're experimenting in drag, you know you're getting long-lasting quality.
Yeah, if I can wear it all day for filming, you can wear it out for a date for sure.
Yes.
All right, everybody, that's it for our long-ass Psycho episode. Thank you for joining us. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to the Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night, and tell a friend to listen. We always love to welcome new uglies to the fold.
See you next time.
Yes, Mother?
Norman, I'm gonna kill that whore.
Holy shit.
The Boulet Brothers Creatures of the Night is hosted and produced by Dracmorda and Swantula Boulet, along with co-host Ian DeVogler, with music by Neuron Spectre.